Hello everybody, we have another art activity for the day, and I was just thinking back at school what kind of activity that you really enjoy, and absolutely everybody loves to work with the clay. It doesn't matter what kind of clay objects we're making, whether it's a little pot or making an animal, everybody loves using clay. Now I don't know about you, but I don't have clay in my home. And I'm sure you don't either, although if you've got clay obviously you can use that. But I'm going to show you how to make a substitute. We can't make clay, we can make something that acts in a similar way. We're going to have a go making salt dough. Now you maybe had a go at this when you were in reception class. Maybe you're an adult who's looking at this and you think, well, that's not very sophisticated, but you can do quite sophisticated things with it. It's not the dough, that the dough is the dough, but it's what you make of it that is important. So I'm going to give you the recipe. It's very easy to remember. It's got three things. It's got salt dough. You can see it in there that you might put in your dinner or your cooking. I've got a big jar of my flour here. This is plain flour without any raising agents. Don't use self-raising flour. And I've got a little jug here with cold water in it, not hot water. I need a bowl, hence this, and a butter knife, a blunt knife, not a sharp knife. I've got a tray here, which I'm going to put my models in the oven with, and I've got some tin foil here. We're going to put our models on tin foil, because if it sticks to the tin foil you can probably get it off, but if it sticks to the metal tray it will be very difficult to get off. So I put a little bit of this on the tray first. So that's ready, and it's going to go in the oven for 2 hours. 2 hours. So you need to turn your oven on. You need to turn it to 120. I'll turn it on there now so it's warming up a little bit, and when you put the salt dough model shapes in, you put the timer on for 2 hours, or you can just look at the clock. Put it in at 2 o'clock, it'll be out at 4 o'clock, and I'm sure you all can work that one out. Now the ratio for the recipe is 2 to 1, so 2 parts of plain flour to 1 part salt. Okay, 2 to 1. So if I'm using cups, it's 2 cups of plain flour to 1 cup of salt. If I'm using spoons, it's 2 spoonfuls of flour to 1 spoonful of salt. And the water we're going to put in very carefully until we get the right consistency. Okay, plain flour. I'm going to make a smaller batch of this. A lot of the recipes online, you end up with a huge big lump of salt dough, but we're not going to use it all. It's best to try and make what you're going to use for your particular activity. So 2 cups of plain flour. I use this little cup, it stays in my flour pot for me. 1 cup there. 2 cups of plain flour, like that. You can leave the lid open because you might need some for the top of the workstation. And I've got my 1 cup here of salt. So 2 flour, 1 of salt. And the thing that keeps this recipe from going bad is the salt. The salt is really important, and we have a lot of salt in here. You couldn't eat this. It's completely inedible. Salt is a wonderful thing. It has many, many uses, and its main use is to keep things from going bad. And the other use of salt is that it makes things taste nice if you don't use too much of it. And we put it in our cooking, we put it on our dinner. It's a very useful ingredient. So let's mix that all up with our hands. And as you can see, it's a fair amount. If you've got brothers and sisters, or if you're doing it with your mum or your dad or your auntie or granny, you can all make 1 batch together and then you can split it up. Now the tricky bit is the water going in, because if you put too much in and it goes sticky, it's not going to be usable. So put in a small amount, and then I'm going to mix it with the knife. We mix with the knife because the knife cuts through the dough. If you use a spoon, it gets stuck in the curvature of the spoon. So cooks will tell you this too. You mix with a knife, especially when you're making bread. So I'm going to mix that like that. And you can see it's still quite dry. Another little bit. It's better that it's too dry than it's too wet. You notice I'm sitting down on a stool. That's why I look so small. If I stand up, then I'll be out of the frame of the iPad. So I'm sitting on Frank's little stool. He stands here and does his cooking with me. His favourite thing is pancakes, which you have to make nearly every time he comes round. So Yagi is a bit tired of pancakes. But right now, I wish he was here to make pancakes. Okay, let's see if we can squish it together now with our hands. You push it into the bottom of the bowl, see if you can squash up all the dry bits. Okay, it's still quite dry. I'm going to put a little tiny bit of water in. I'll use my hand this time. And when it forms a ball like this in the bottom of the bowl, you can toss it out onto the counter, like that. And this is quite dry, so you don't need any more flour on the countertop. So I'm kneading here. I'm not doing bread kneading, this is kind of like clay kneading, just to make it smooth. This won't dry out quite as much as clay. You remember in school, if your hot hands make it dry out and it dries out quite quickly, you have to move quite fast. But this is a little bit different. It's a bit more forgiving, this one, with the hotness of our hands. So, we've made reception class salt dough. What are we going to do now? Right, I thought we could make some little dough plates and put some foods on them. So, I'll show you what I mean rather than try and explain it. So I'm going to cut this bit here. This is quite big, just to show you, but you could make it smaller. You could make it like a little badge. You could make it into a magnet for the fridge. So this is going to be my plate, so to speak. I'll make it a bit larger than I would normally do, just to show you. And then on the plate, I'm going to put on my strips of bacon. Not very good for you, but never mind. It looks quite nice on this. I'm going to put on my some sausages. So we're making an English breakfast or an Ulster fry. I don't know if you know what an Ulster fry is. Maybe you could find out. Sausages, bacon, and we have eggs. So we have it's a fried egg, so it's flat like that, and it's got the little yolk. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. Actually, I should be holding this up, shouldn't I? So I've got the plate here. I've got 2 strips of bacon, and I've got 3 sausages, and just here I've got my fried egg, just there like that, and perhaps we'll put some sweet corn or peas. So if you make little ball shapes, just put them on, whoops, your plate, like that. And when I'm happy with it, I can put it on my tin foil on my tray. So it looks like that. I might have other ones as well if you want to make more than one. I'm going to put it in the oven for 2 hours. Look at the clock. My clock says almost 2:30, 3:30, 4:30. So I have to get it at 4:30, and it's got to be at 120 degrees. And you can set that on your oven. You might want to ask an adult about setting the oven because you might not know how to do that. So I'm going to stop here for a moment and let it cook. Okay, they've been in the oven now for an extra hour. So I'm going to take them out. They should be well dried out by now. And I've got an old plastic bag on the surface here. We're going to have a go at painting. So I've got this one here that we made. I showed you how to make that one. It's still quite warm. You might want to leave it until it's cold, but I'm running out of time today because it's 5:30. So I'm going to have a go with this one. I've got one here that I made with 2 eggs and sausages and beans or something there. And this one here's got burgers and chips. I ran out of chips really there, so I could paint some peas in or something there. So I haven't got any paints. Maybe you haven't got any paints, but what I do have in the cupboard is leftover food colouring from birthdays. So we'll just use those for now. And I don't know how I'm going to mix this at all. So I want some white for the egg, and I haven't got any white. So perhaps if you have any of that correcting fluid with a little brush, you could use that for doing the egg white. And then I've got a little artist brush here, a bit of yellow, and I'm going to just do the yolk of the egg. Like this here, as carefully as I can. Because it's quite warm, then it will also dry out fairly easily as well. Let's try a bit of green for the peas. Or you could use an orangey yellow if you want to make it sweet corn. It's up to you. I'm making those peas like that. So I've got my yellow egg white and my little green peas. I want brown, and I haven't got brown, so I'm going to try and mix it. Let's try orange, and I'll put it on the plate here. And don't mix your colours. And a little bit of blue, perhaps, a small bit of blue. You can get little paintbrushes quite cheaply from a supermarket. There's a nice bright brown, you might call it, or a deep orange for the sausages. So you just paint them on the top like this. It's actually quite a good idea painting it when it's a bit warm, because it dries it really quickly. Dries the food colouring really quickly. Wonder did I make that a little bit more brown? Let's try a little bit more blue. Okay, I like that. So with this one, I'm just going to put a little bit on the top, the way the sausages get roasted in the oven. So it's a little bit more subtle than just painting the whole thing brown. Okay, and I would like some of my bacon. What should we make the bacon? A pinky colour perhaps? So let's have our red again. And the white is a problem, isn't it? Let's try that. Oh, I need to let you see it. So it's a slightly different colour than the sausages, mostly. And I could put a little bit of shading on it with my brown, darker brown. Little lines on it perhaps, if you could manage that. Mine hasn't worked very well, but I'm sure you can do yours better than me. So there we go. There's the food paint on the plate. If you want the plate to be a colour, we could turn the plate blue. So I get a slightly larger brush, in with the blue. And we go round here, all the bits that aren't etc, etc. So you end up with quite a nice little piece of artwork there. Obviously mine's quite a large one. You could use that for putting on a pile of papers, like a paperweight. You could stick a little hook on the back and put it on the wall, put a magnet on it as a fridge magnet. So you see what you can do, have fun, enjoy yourself, and remember, use colours. Colours are good.